This is the story of something that happened to a friend of mine. I'm going to tell you exactly how it was told to me. And trust me, by the end, you'll be sleeping with the lights on. It happened 2 years ago, during his first year of college. He had just moved into a dorm room on the 3rd floor of one of the oldest buildings on campus. The building looked normal from the outside, but once you stepped in, you could feel something strange. The air felt heavier, colder. The halls echoed, even when you walked quietly. And his room, room 317, was always colder than the rest. His roommate, Jay, seemed fine at first. Quiet, kept to himself, mostly wore headphones. But after a week, my friend noticed Jay was having trouble sleeping. Every night around 3:17 a.m. he would suddenly sit up, eyes wide open, breathing fast. Sometimes he'd whisper things under his breath, things that didn't make sense. One night, my friend finally asked him about it. Jay just looked at him and said, "Have you heard her yet?" That gave my friend chills. He tried to laugh it off. "Who?" Jay stared at the corner of the room. "The girl. She cries sometimes. Sometimes she knocks." Now, you'd think he was just messing around, right? But Jay looked serious, like he was scared. My friend asked more, but Jay wouldn't say another word. A few nights later, my friend stayed up late studying. Jay had already gone to bed with his hoodie over his head like he always did. The room was silent, except for the ticking of the small desk clock. Then, around 3:15 a.m., the room got colder. Not just a little cold, it felt like ice was forming on the inside of his chest. His breath started fogging in the air. That's when he heard it. A soft knock. It came from the closet. Now, let me explain something. Their closet was small, just big enough for a few hangers and shoes. Nothing else. And it didn't have a lock, just a sliding door. My friend froze. He stared at the closet, thinking maybe it was the building settling or maybe Jay had made the noise. But Jay was still in bed, not moving. Then the knock came again. 3 times. Slow, soft, like someone didn't want to be heard. My friend wanted to call out, but his throat felt tight. He reached for his phone, hand shaking, and turned on the flashlight. The beam pointed at the closet. The door slid open. Not all the way, just a few inches. Enough to see that it was completely dark inside. He stood up slowly, every part of his body telling him not to go closer. But he did. He walked toward it, whispering, "Jay, are you awake?" But Jay didn't answer. He was only a step away when he heard something inside the closet. Breathing. It wasn't loud. It was soft and shaky, like someone crying and trying not to make noise. He backed away, heart pounding. That's when Jay suddenly jumped out of bed and screamed, "Don't open it!" My friend turned and saw Jay standing in the middle of the room, shaking, his eyes wide. "Don't open it," he repeated, voice cracking. They didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Jay explained everything. He said that a girl had died in that room years ago. She had been a student, quiet and shy, and nobody noticed when she stopped going to class. They found her in that closet weeks later. No one knew how she died. There were no signs of injury, just her body, curled up, eyes open. Ever since then, the dorm kept that room closed, but after renovations they reopened it, not telling anyone what had happened there. Jay had been assigned the room the year before but changed roommates after a few weeks. And now he was back. Jay believed the girl's spirit was still there. He said she gets lonely, that she knocks trying to see if anyone will open the door. And if they do, she cries louder, follows them, sometimes appears in the mirror, sometimes sits at the edge of the bed. That day, my friend went to the housing office and begged to be moved. They said the dorms were full, but he didn't care. He said he'd sleep in the lounge, the library, anywhere. Eventually, they gave him a different room, but it didn't end there. 2 weeks later, Jay stopped showing up to class. When people checked his social media, it hadn't been updated. Messages went unread. The college sent someone to check on him. They found the room empty. No sign of struggle, nothing missing. Just Jay's phone lying on the desk in the closet. Door wide open. There were scratch marks inside. Thin, deep lines like fingernails dragged across the wood, and something written in red ink near the back wall. Just one word. Listen. Campus police investigated, but found nothing. Jay was never found. Eventually, they closed that room again, sealed it, said it was under maintenance. Now here's the part that really gets me. A month ago, my friend, who's in his 3rd year now, got curious. He went back to that building. It was daytime, and he figured he'd just walk by the old room for the memory. But when he got there, the hallway was empty, silent. And room 317? The door was open, just a crack. He didn't go in. He stood there, frozen, listening. Nothing. He turned to leave and heard it. A soft knock. From inside the closet, he didn't look back. He ran, and he says he's never going near that floor again. I asked him once, do you think it was all real? Maybe Jay just ran away or dropped out. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, then explain why I still hear the knocks. Ever since he told me that story, I can't sleep easily in unfamiliar places. Sometimes when it's really quiet, especially around 3 a.m., I start listening too closely. Listening for something I hope I never hear. Because once you hear the knock, it means she knows you're listening. And once you listen, she starts to follow. This is the story of something truly strange that happened in a college dorm. I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened, the way it was told to me. No jokes, no exaggeration, just the truth. So sit back and listen carefully. It was the fall of 2021 when Emily James, a second-year psychology student, moved into Ashcroft Hall. It was one of the older dorms at Westbridge University, the kind with creaky floors, flickering lights, and doors that never closed quite right. But it was close to campus and the rent was cheap. That's all Emily cared about. She was assigned to room 212 on the 2nd floor. It was a double room, but her assigned roommate never showed up. Some issue with enrollment, so Emily had the place to herself. She liked that at first. No one to bother her, no need for small talk. She could study in peace. But by the 2nd week, things started getting weird. It began with the mirror above her desk. One night while brushing her hair, she noticed something. A smudge in the corner of the mirror. No big deal. She tried to wipe it off, but it wouldn't come clean. It wasn't on the surface. It was inside the mirror. It looked almost like a fingerprint, but pressed from the inside. Creeped out, she covered the mirror with a towel and went to bed. She told herself it was nothing. Maybe it was just an old mirror. That's all. But the next morning, the towel was on the floor, and the mirror was spotless. No fingerprint. Nothing. She started hearing knocking sounds too, always around the same time. Late at night, usually between 2 and 3 a.m., there'd be 3 soft knocks. sometimes on the wall behind her bed, sometimes on her closet door. Once it came from under her bed. Emily tried everything. She pushed her bed to the other side of the room. She put her headphones in, blasted music, even tried recording the sounds on her phone. But nothing ever showed up. Just silence on the, playback. One night, her friend Claire came to sleep over after a late study session. Emily didn't want to be alone that night. Around 2:40 a.m., Emily woke up to find Claire sitting upright in bed, wide-eyed, staring at the closet. "What's wrong?" Emily whispered. Claire didn't answer. She just pointed. The closet door was wide open. Emily had closed it before bed. She always did. Claire finally spoke, her voice shaking. "Did you hear her?" "Hear who?" "The girl. She was crying. She said she was cold." Emily froze. "What?" Claire nodded slowly. She said, "Why did they lock me in?" They didn't sleep that night. In the morning, Claire begged Emily to talk to someone, anyone. So Emily went to the dorm supervisor, Mrs. Keller, and told her everything. To her surprise, Mrs. Keller didn't laugh. She didn't even act shocked. She just sighed and said, "I was hoping this room was finally quiet." Emily blinked. "What do you mean?" Mrs. Keller hesitated, then closed her office door. She told Emily the truth. 5 years ago, a girl named Hannah Granger had lived in that very room, room 212. Quiet, always kept to herself, just like Emily. Her roommate left mid-semester, so she stayed alone. One weekend, during winter break, Hannah disappeared. They thought she'd gone home early. When she didn't return after break, people started asking questions. They opened the room. Everything looked normal, except for the closet. It was stuck shut. Maintenance had to force it open. They found her inside. She had climbed in with a blanket and some snacks. There was no sign of foul play, no suicide note. Just her body, curled up in the corner, as if she'd fallen asleep and never woke up. The cause of death was ruled undetermined. Some people said she had locked herself in. Others said the door had jammed. But after that, strange things began happening in room 212. Mirrors fogging up with messages, whispers in the night, knocking, and always the same thing: crying. After enough complaints, they sealed the room for years. But with more students than ever and not enough space, they decided to reopen it the year Emily moved in. Emily was stunned. "Why didn't anyone warn me?" Mrs. Keller said softly. "We didn't want to scare new students, and some never notice anything. But clearly, she's still there." That night, Emily didn't go back to the room. She stayed with Claire. But a part of her felt wrong about leaving Hannah alone. What if she really was trapped? What if she just wanted someone to listen? So the next night, Emily went back alone. She sat in front of the closet and whispered, "Hannah, I'm here. You don't have to be scared." For a long time, there was silence. Then, 3 soft knocks from inside the closet. Emily felt her body tense. She fought the urge to run. "I won't leave you," she whispered. The closet door slowly creaked, open. Inside it was pitch black, but she could see something, a shape, a figure. A girl sitting with her knees pulled up, long hair covering her face. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Then the girl spoke. A soft, trembling voice. "They forgot me." Emily swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." The girl looked up slowly, her face pale and eyes sunken. "Will you stay?" Emily couldn't answer. The fear was too strong. She backed away, heart pounding, and ran out of the room. That was the last night she stayed in room 212. She moved out the following week. No one has stayed there since. They sealed the door again, said it was due to water damage, but everyone on the floor knows the truth. They don't talk about it, but they know. If you walk by room 212 late at night, you might hear it, the soft sound of crying, or 3 quiet knocks. Claire refuses to step foot in Ashcroft Hall now. And Emily? She transferred schools. She told me the story during winter break when I bumped into her at a cafe. She looked tired, older than she should have. I asked her if she still dreams about that room. She just nodded. Sometimes I hear her crying in my sleep, she said. And sometimes she's not in the closet anymore. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. But ever since she told me that story, I don't trust mirrors anymore, especially at night. I keep my closet locked, and I never, ever ignore a knock after midnight. Because if you do, she might think you're the one who forgot her too. This is the story of a friend of mine, Josh Turner. It's a story I can hardly believe myself, but he swears it's true. So listen closely, because once you hear this, you'll probably never want to stay in a college dorm alone again. Josh was a freshman at Willow Creek University. He got assigned to a dorm called Maple Hall, a building that was famous for being old and a bit creepy. Think wood floors that creak and old-fashioned light switches that sometimes flicker on their own. The kind of place where people say strange things happen, but mostly just laugh it off. But Josh never believed those stories. At least, not until he moved into room 408. The room was on the 4th floor, near the end of a long hallway. It had 2 beds and 2 desks. Josh's roommate was a guy named Mark, who seemed pretty normal at first. Quiet, kept to himself, but friendly enough. The first few days were fine. They unpacked, met some people, and settled in. But then things started to feel off. It was around the 2nd week when Josh noticed the strange noises. At first, it was just little things. Soft footsteps in the hallway at night when the building was supposed to be quiet. Sometimes the lights in their room would flicker without explanation. But the weirdest thing was a sound coming from inside their closet. At first, Josh thought Mark was messing with him, maybe hiding in the closet as a prank or trying to scare him. But when Josh asked Mark about it, Mark looked confused and said he hadn't heard anything. Then one night, Josh woke up to the sound of whispering. It was soft, so soft he thought maybe it was just his imagination. But the whispering kept going, growing louder for about 10 minutes before fading away. Josh sat up and looked around the room. Mark was asleep, snoring lightly. The closet door was slightly open. Josh reached over and closed it, but the whispers seemed to follow. They echoed in his mind, repeating words he couldn't understand. After that night, Josh didn't sleep well. He kept hearing the whispering, the footsteps, and sometimes he thought he saw shadows moving just outside his vision. One evening, Josh stayed late studying in the common lounge. When he came back to the room around midnight, the door to room 408 was wide open. That was strange. Both he and Mark always locked it. Josh stepped inside and found Mark sitting on his bed, staring at the closet door. "Mark, why's the door open?" Josh asked. Mark didn't answer at first, then he whispered, "I heard her." "Hear who?" "The girl. She's in the closet." Josh's heart skipped a beat. "You're joking, right?" Mark shook his head slowly. She's real. She's been here a long time. Josh wanted to laugh, but the look in Mark's eyes stopped him. Mark looked scared. Over the next few days, Josh learned what Mark knew. Years ago, a girl named Rachel had lived in room 408. She was a shy student, very quiet, rarely seen by others. One winter, Rachel stopped coming to classes. After a week, no one saw her. The school didn't check immediately. They thought she had gone home for the holidays. When students returned after break, maintenance went to clean the room. The closet door was locked shut. No one had a key. After forcing it open, they found Rachel inside. She had locked herself in the closet, and no one knew how long she'd been there. Her death was ruled accidental. She had likely passed out from lack of air and never woke up. But since then, strange things have happened in that room. Students who stayed in room 408 reported hearing soft knocking on the closet door at night. Some said they saw a pale girl standing in the corner, staring out with empty eyes. Others woke up to the feeling of cold breath on their necks. Josh wasn't sure what to believe, but he wasn't about to stay and find out. One night, Mark disappeared. Josh came back from a late study group to find Mark's bed empty. His belongings were still there, but no sign of him. The closet door was wide open, and there were deep scratch marks along its edges, like someone had tried desperately to get out. Josh called campus security, and they searched the building. Mark was nowhere to be found. No phone calls, no messages. Just gone. After that, Josh packed up and left room 408. He moved to another dorm on the opposite side of campus, but he couldn't forget what happened. Weeks later, he got a message on his phone. It was a photo from an unknown number. It showed the closet door of room 408, slightly open, and in the darkness inside you could see a faint shape of a girl. Josh never replied. He told me all of this during a late-night call, voice shaking, eyes wide with fear. Since then, he never stays alone. He sleeps with the lights on and always locks his closet. So next time you hear knocking from inside a closet, don't ignore it, because sometimes the girl is still waiting to be found. And if she chooses you, you might never leave. This is the story of Rachel and David, two students at Brookside University, and what happened to them in their dorm room one cold autumn semester. I promise you, once you hear this, you'll think twice before spending a night alone in a college dorm. Rachel had just started her sophomore year. She was excited but also nervous because she had been assigned a new roommate, David. They met briefly during move-in day and seemed friendly enough. Their room, 317 in Linden Hall, was an old, somewhat run-down dorm building. The floors creaked, the walls were thin, and the heating system made strange noises late at night. The first few days went smoothly. Rachel and David fell into an easy routine. Classes during the day, studying at night, chatting about life. But Rachel soon noticed something odd about the room. Small things at first. Her textbooks would be slightly moved when she came back, even though David swore he hadn't touched them. Sometimes she felt cold spots near the closet door, and there was this strange faint scent of something like old perfume. One night, Rachel woke up suddenly to the sound of tapping. It was soft, but rhythmic, coming from inside the closet. She thought it might be David messing with her. When she looked over, David was sound asleep, eyes closed, breathing steady. Maybe I'm imagining things, Rachel told herself, but she couldn't shake the feeling. The tapping continued on and off over the next few nights. Then Rachel started hearing whispers. At first they were so faint she thought it was the wind. But one night she distinctly heard a girl's voice whisper, "Help me." Rachel told David about it. He laughed nervously and said, "Dorms are old. Pipes make weird noises. You're just stressed." Rachel wanted to believe him, but the whispers grew clearer. One evening, after a late study session, Rachel stayed behind while David went to a friend's room. Alone in their dorm, she heard the tapping again, louder this time, followed by a soft sobbing from the closet. Her heart pounding, Rachel stood and slowly opened the closet door. Inside, the small space was dark, but empty, except for some old coats. She stepped back, feeling chills run down her spine. Suddenly, the closet door slammed shut on its own. Rachel jumped back, knocking over a chair. The sobbing stopped immediately. She tried to open the door, but it was locked tight. Panicked, Rachel called David. He came back fast and managed to pry the door open. When it swung open, the room was silent again. David didn't believe Rachel's story. He said maybe a draft caused the door to slam, but Rachel knew something wasn't right. That night, Rachel couldn't sleep. She stayed up watching the closet. Around midnight, the room grew icy cold. The whispering started again. Then she saw it, a pale figure of a young woman standing just inside the closet, looking at her with hollow eyes. Rachel gasped, and the figure vanished. The next morning, Rachel told the dorm supervisor, Ms. Hastings, about what she saw. Ms. Hastings looked serious and said, "That room has a history." Rachel learned from her that years ago, a student named Lily had lived in room 317. Lily was quiet, shy, and often lonely. One winter, during a harsh storm, Lily went missing. Days later, she was found inside the closet of that very room. It seemed she had locked herself in and couldn't get out. No one knew why. Since then, many students who lived there reported strange noises, cold spots, and the feeling of being watched. Rachel felt a cold wave wash over her as she listened. That night, she asked David if they could switch rooms, but David refused, calling it superstition. The next few nights, things got worse. The whispers grew louder, turning into pleading voices. "Please help me." Rachel started having nightmares about Lily, trapped and scared, banging on the closet door, begging to be freed. One night, Rachel and David decided to set up a camera to record what was happening. When they played the footage the next day, they saw something chilling. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the closet door creaked open slowly. A shadowy figure appeared, pressing a pale hand against the glass of the camera lens. Then the door slammed shut. David looked pale. Okay, maybe this is real. Rachel, however, felt sorry for Lily. She wanted to help. That night, Rachel sat by the closet and spoke softly. "Lily, if you're here, tell me what you need." For a moment, nothing. Then a faint tapping. 3 times. Rachel opened the closet and found a small, old diary tucked behind some coats. Inside were Lily's thoughts. Loneliness, fear, and a desperate hope someone would find her. Rachel showed the diary to Ms. Hastings, who helped arrange a small memorial for Lily in the dorm. After that, the strange noises began to fade. Rachel and David stayed in the room until the end of the semester, but the whispering stopped. The cold spots disappeared. Sometimes when Rachel passed by the closet, she thought she saw a faint smile in the shadows, like Lily was finally at peace. But Rachel never forgot that terrifying autumn, and she still keeps a nightlight on whenever she stays in old dorms. So if you ever hear whispers or knocks from a closet in your dorm room, maybe it's not just the wind. Maybe it's someone waiting for help. And if you listen closely enough, you might hear their story too. It's called College Dorm Horror Story, and it's about a guy named Ethan and the nightmare he lived through during his first semester at Hawthorne University. Listen carefully, because once I'm done, you might think twice before moving into an old dorm. Ethan was a typical college freshman, excited, a little nervous, and ready to start a new chapter. He was assigned a room in the oldest dorm on campus, Edgewood Hall. The building had a history. Built almost 100 years ago, it had that musty smell of aged wood and peeling paint, and students always whispered about weird things happening there. But Ethan didn't believe in ghost stories. He thought they were just tales to scare new students. His roommate, Jake, was supposed to arrive a few days after Ethan moved in. So for a while, Ethan had the room to himself. The first night was quiet, maybe a little too quiet. Ethan stayed up late unpacking, but around midnight, he heard a faint scratching noise coming from the wall near his bed. He shrugged it off as mice or maybe just the building settling. The next day, Jake showed up. Jake was a tall, athletic guy who seemed friendly enough but kept to himself mostly. That night, Ethan told Jake about the scratching sound. Jake laughed and said, "Old buildings make weird noises, man. Nothing to worry about." But the scratching didn't stop. Over the next week, the noises grew louder and more frequent. Sometimes it was scratching, sometimes soft tapping, like someone gently knocking. Ethan started feeling uneasy. He noticed his things were sometimes moved slightly. His books shifted. His jacket left on the chair was found on the floor. One night, Ethan woke up to a cold draft, even though the windows were shut tight. Then, he saw it. At the foot of his bed stood a shadow, a dark, blurry figure that didn't have a clear shape. Ethan froze, heart pounding. He blinked, and the shadow was gone. He wanted to tell Jake, but Jake said, "You're just stressed. You'll get used to it." One evening, Ethan was studying late when he heard a soft voice whisper his name. "Ethan." He looked around. The room was empty except for him. His heart hammered in his chest. He tried to ignore it, but the whispering continued night after night. Then came the nightmares. Ethan dreamed he was trapped inside the dorm's walls, crawling through narrow tunnels. The walls were closing in, and he could hear scratching all around him. Then a pale face would appear in the darkness, staring with hollow eyes. Ethan woke up sweating, gasping for air. After a particularly bad nightmare, Ethan decided to explore the dorm's history. He went to the campus library and found an old newspaper article about a student named Clara Bennett who had died in Edgewood Hall nearly 50 years ago. Clara was a music major who lived alone in room 213. One night, she disappeared without a trace. After days of searching, her body was found hidden in the wall behind a false panel near the closet. The article said the cause of death was never clear, but rumors suggested she was trapped and suffocated. Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. Shocker. Next night, Ethan's scratching noises turned into pounding. The closet door in his room started to shake violently. He heard sobbing coming from inside. Jake was out with friends, so Ethan was alone. Gathering all his courage, Ethan approached the closet. The sobbing grew louder, desperate. Suddenly, the closet door slammed open by itself. Inside, nothing but darkness. Ethan shone his phone's flashlight inside and saw scratch marks all over the wooden panels. Suddenly, A cold hand grabbed his wrist. Ethan screamed, pulling away and stumbling back. He ran out of the room and didn't come back until Jake returned. Jake noticed Ethan's pale face and asked what happened. Ethan told him everything. The noises, the shadow, the voice, the hand. Jake finally took him seriously. Together, they found a campus security officer who specialized in old buildings. The officer explained that Edgewood Hall was known for paranormal activity. Students had reported strange noises, moving objects, and unexplained cold spots for decades. The officer advised Ethan and Jake to hold a small ritual of cleansing, something simple to bring peace to Clara's spirit. That night, they lit candles, said a few kind words, and left a bouquet of flowers near the closet. For the first time in weeks, the dorm was silent. Ethan slept peacefully. But just as he was starting to relax, the final scare came. One morning, Jake woke Ethan up. "Dude, come see this." They went to the closet. Written in the dust on the floor were the words, "Thank you." Ethan looked closely, heart still pounding. Then he noticed faint footprints leading away from the closet, disappearing into the wall. No one ever saw Clara's ghost again, but Ethan never forgot those terrifying nights in Edgewood Hall. And to this day, he avoids old dorms whenever he can. So, next time you hear scratching behind the walls or a soft whisper calling your name in a dorm room, don't ignore it. Because sometimes the past doesn't want to be forgotten. It wants to be heard.